everybody. It's Wednesday afternoon, so here is Shields Live. I'm just trying to find it to see if I'm actually live. Oh, it looks like I am. Here we go. I found myself. I been having a little technical issues this afternoon. Sorry guys, you just get me today. Tim is on vacation, so we're gonna talk a little bit about the 1/4 inch seam, and I get a lot of questions about how do I get the perfect 1/4 inch seam? My 1/4 inch seam isn't exactly the way it should be, and so there's a myriad of feet that you can use to get a 1/4 inch seam. And give me a second here. I'm going to go ahead and turn off a little banner here and find my comments. There we go. Hello. Oh, we got some people here. Hello, everybody. See, this is great because on So Long with Jan, I don't always see people's names, but on the business page, it shows your names. So it's great because I can see the names right on the computer. So it's a lot bigger than it is. Hi, everybody. Okay, so anyway, so this is something that a lot of people ask me. I get a lot of questions about this. And so we're just going to do a little sewing today, and we're going to compare. There's different feet. So I've got 5 different piecing feet to show you today. So they all have their values. And some of them are different than others. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to go through these, and then we're going to compare them and see what might work the best for you. So anyway, so I'm going to turn the camera over here to this machine, and I am sewing on my own machine today. I'm sewing on I have a VM5200. It's a nice sewing embroidery combo. I like to use this for this kind of stuff. So give me a second. I'm going to switch my camera. Oops, I got to find the right button here. Over to the camera on the machine and the right microphone. Okay, so is everybody still hearing me okay? And here's my machine. So this machine is actually it's a nice big machine. It's an embroidery machine too, so it has an 8x12 hoop on it. It's a really nice machine. I really like sewing on it. It's pretty good size, 11 1/4 inches in here. So this is the machine I'm going to sew on today. And then I'll show you the screens and stuff too. They're going to be very similar to a lot of the other machines that you all have. And if you don't have a machine with the touchscreen on it, the stitches that I'm going to use today are still the same. They're just going to have a different button for them. Okay, so everything's going to be very much the same on all the Brother and Baby Lock machines that I'm going to show you today. All right, so everybody's hearing me okay? Hopefully. I'm going to go ahead and bring my phone up here. A second, let me pull this down. I'm just going to bring this up in case I need to see something. So give me a second here. There we go. All right, so let's talk about 1/4 inch piecing feet. They often call these, well, depending on if it's Brother or Baby Lock, they call them different things. The Brother usually calls them, this is the Brother foot. Okay, this is the 1/4 inch piecing foot. Okay, so and we're going to start with this one. Baby Lock happens to call their equivalent, and these are the same feet. So if I'm talking about a Baby Lock foot, it works on your Brother machine too. Okay, so don't be worried that they're not going to work. Okay, so both of these, sometimes I have Brother feet and sometimes I have Baby Lock feet. Now, Baby Lock also has some of their own feet that Brother doesn't have. So we're going to also talk about a couple of those today. But we're going to start with the ones that both of them have. So these are the 2 original 1/4 inch piecing feet that I've owned for many years. These are my feet. And so the first one is the one that Brother calls it the 1/4 inch piecing foot, and it's SA125. You probably can't quite see it. It's down in here. And then the Baby Lock version, they call it a quilting or patchwork foot, 1/4 inch. Okay, so they just call it a different thing. And this one's the ESG-QF. Okay, so this one we often have one or the other. They're the same price. They're $14.99. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about first. Now, this is the foot that I've been using for years for 1/4 inch seam. And the deal with this foot is, I'm going to take my foot off. Everybody knows how to do that. There's a little button back here. You just press this and it drops off. Okay, and then we're going to put this foot on. So this is the foot. Hold a little closer so you can see it. Okay. On this foot, you need to have your needle, and it's very important to have the needle in the center needle position. You can see there's just a little hole there. And if you have the needle off to the left, it's going to come down and wonk that foot and break your needle. So I'm going to go into sewing on my machine, and I have mine set. This is another time where I'm going to show you something on here. I like my machine to come up with the needle in the center needle position because of that foot. Okay, so most of these piecing feet have only a hole in the center. So I want to make sure my needle's always in the center. And I can't sew straight with it on the left, so I usually use it in the center because that helps me. Okay. So in order, I'm going to show you something on the settings. So my settings page is down here. Many of the machines, it's up here. It looks the same. It's a piece of paper with the corner turned down. And on one of the pages, and they're all going to be different, there's going to be a place where it's going to tell you, oh, it's here, right here. It says initial position. So that's the setting you're going to use. And when they come out of the box, they're going to be over here on the left. See how the needle's kind of over here on the left? I like mine to be in the center. So I always go into the settings and change that. The first thing I do, so I won't break my needle on my foot. Okay. So that's something that I always do because I use a piecing foot a lot. All right. So I've got that set in my settings. Now every time I turn off my machine, we'll turn it off, and I'm going to go over here so you can see it. When I turn this on, it's going to take a second. The needle is going to come up in the center needle position. So it's right here in the center, okay? So what that setting does. It makes it either be on the left or in the center. Now, the one thing that is different with these machines, the needle plate markings that are back here are set up for the machine to be with the needle on the left. Okay, so if you move the needle to the center, everything's about 1/8 of an inch off. So it's about 1/8 of an inch short. So like if I need a 5/8 inch seam that's right here, I actually need to move my fabric over closer to the 2 centimeter mark for it to be a 5/8 inch seam. Okay, so I like to sew with my needle in the center. The reason they do that, and I often tell people this story, the reason, and I finally figured out why they do this. Okay, so if you look at this foot here, this is the regular zigzag foot. We'll talk about this one in a minute too. It has a wide opening in there, doesn't it? Okay, so the old machines that just went straight, remember those old-fashioned machines, they just had a hole in the needle plate and they had a hole in the center. So the needle was supported all the way around, right? Okay, well, this one is only supported on the front and the back in the center. So by placing the needle position on the left, it's supported on 3 sides then. So that's why most of the newer machines have a left needle position that's default, because then your needle is supported on 3 sides. Okay, so that's why I found that out by watching doing some training videos with Baby Lock, and I thought that was very interesting, and it makes sense. But I still need to sew with the needle in the center for me to sew straight. So anyway, that's my little story about the needle plate. Okay. All right, and I just have my zigzag plate on my machine here. And I usually piece with a zigzag plate. I don't use my straight stitch plate too much. All right, so we're going to start with this one. So this is the original 1/4 inch piecing foot that Brother and Baby Lock had. This is the very first one. And you can see it's a pretty small foot. You know, it's considerably smaller than this one. Okay. And it works real well if you don't have to go over a lot of seams. I have a little trouble with it floating over the seams when I get a bunch because it is kind of short. But we're just going to do a couple of small pieces of fabric here. I got some squares cut, and I put pink thread in so you can see it. Okay, so what you're going to do with this to make a 1/4 inch seam, needles in the center, and you are going to run the fabric right along this little tine right here. Let me get it a little closer for you. This little tine right here, okay? Right along that. Now, again, this is us having to drive this machine, right? So our 1/4 inch seam could possibly be a little different. So let's try this one. So when I want this foot, I'm going to put that right along the edge of my fabric and right inside this little notch right here. Okay. And I want to make sure that my needle's going to drop down in the fabric. I'm going to drop my needle down first before I start sewing. I have my pivot on also. Yep, I have my pivot on. And I like that because, see, it raises my foot. So I'm ready for the next block. So then let's just do a 1/4 inch seam and see what it does here. I'm running it right along the edge of this foot right here. And when I stop, you notice that the foot goes up. This is great for piecing because now when I'm ready for my next block, see, I could just go and stick my next block in here and then see, I can push it right up to the needle. I love to chain piece this way. So let me just show you. See, I can just keep going. Now these machines will allow you to take a couple stitches off of the fabric. It's okay to go if you go off the fabric a little bit. Okay, so see, then I would have chain pieced and then I would cut those. Okay. All right. I'm gonna have to cut with my cutter today because I forgot my scissors. All right, so that's a nice 1/4 inch seam there. Okay, that looks pretty good. And there's one thing that I'm going to have Judy get for me here in a minute, but I forgot my hem gauge. We got busy right before the little thing here, and I don't have my hem gauge. So I don't think there's one in here. Let me see. I'll have Judy get my hem gauge for me. But this is a pretty accurate 1/4 inch seam, and with me going with the foot, I just tuck the fabric under the edge of it, so I just can't see it, and that makes a nice, not a full 1/4, but a nice scant 1/4. Okay, if you can see the edge of your fabric, like if I pull it out a little bit more and I can see it, that's going to be a full 1/4 inch. So that's also going to be the difference with a lot of these piecing feet, whether you're getting a scant 1/4 inch or if you're getting a full 1/4 inch. This one I like because there's no guide on it and I can adjust accordingly. Okay. So that's one thing that I really like, is I like to adjust accordingly. All right. So if you give me a second, I think Judy's with a customer. I'm going to run out and get my hem gauge. Just a second. It's right next to me, but I had to get my key to open up my my box. Okay, someplace in here. Here we go. All right. So this is how I can tell. You know, I kind of use my hem gauge to help me when I do this. So I kind of did some, experimenting when I start working with this. So here's my 1/4 inch. And see, that is pretty accurate. There's the 1/4 inch mark right there. Let's put the little thing up there so you can see it. This is the 1/4 inch mark right there. And you can see that that is pretty accurate. Okay, and it's a scant 1/4 inch. It's not quite all the way out. This little end of my hem gauge is just covering the stitches. So most of the time when I'm stitching, especially doing a quilt, I'm wanting a scant 1/4 inch, especially if I'm doing triangles that you're going to have a lot of intersections. So that scant 1/4 inch is going to keep everything to match up. Okay, so this foot, I have used this foot for years, and there's another foot that's similar to it that I'll show you here in a minute. But this one here has been my favorite foot for many, many years. The only problem I have with it is when I get to working with a lot of triangles and I have a lot of intersections that are meeting up, it's a kind of short foot and it likes to go along, and then it likes to, it'll stop because it won't float over the seams quite as easily. And that's because of the length of the foot. It's very short. The other thing that will help that for you, I'm going to go over here. The other thing that will help you with that is if you go back to your settings again, and a lot of your machines have this, not all of them, from the, say, BQ 1350 and the 1300s, and then the Babylock Sopranos on up, have something that they call automatic height adjustment, or the fabric the automatic fabric sensor system. And that's in my settings here. And it says automatic fabric sensor system. And it's very important you turn that on, because what it does, especially when you're piecing, and it really helps you with your 1/4 inch seams. When you have that turned on, it adjusts the presser foot pressure. So when you're going up over those seams, things will glide a lot better. So make sure you have that turned on in your machine. So I showed you the initial position for the center needle position, and also automatic fabric sensor system. So it is real important to keep that on. If you have that available on your machines, and a lot of them do, even a lot of the older machines had this. So this has been around for quite a while. I really love that because I have everything just moves through the machine better. Okay. So that's the other thing I wanted to show you. All right. So, I entitled this In Search of the Perfect 1/4 inch Seam, because that's what everybody says. Well, I don't have a perfect 1/4 inch seam. Well, it is kind of a journey and it's a search. And I have to say that I have done a lot of testing with the different feet, and you can see that my hem gauge is just covering that seam. That to me is a nice scant 1/4 inch seam. Okay. So, I love my little hem gauge. I use this a lot when I'm testing these things, and then I know what foot's going to work for me depending on what I'm doing. Okay. So this is one of my favorite feet. This is the old original piecing foot. Okay. So we're going to put that one aside for a second. We're going to talk about a different piecing foot. This one came out a few years later. Find the packages here so I can show you. Here we go. Okay, this one came out a few years later, and everybody was so excited because it had a guide on it. See, it has this little guide. So if you have a little trouble keeping your seams straight, okay, this one here, doesn't have any guide, and you have to really kind of watch this little area down here, okay? And if you have a little trouble staying straight, it might be a little harder. This one, everybody was so excited. It has a guide on it. So then you can just put your fabric right up to that guide. So let's go ahead and put this one on, and let's do a little experimenting with this one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to take my foot down on my little bar. Okay. Again, this one has that little hole, so you need to have your needle in the center needle position. And this is the first one we did over here. I'm going to turn this around on the other side so you can see this one, because this one's going to be a little different. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make sure that my fabric is under my foot. I am placing the edge of the fabric right against the guide, the inside of the guide right here. Okay. I'm going to drop my needle. And I'm going to sew forward. And let's see what this one does. So I remember when we first got this one in, I had a gal buy one, and she was so excited it had a guide. But she says, well, my 1/4 inch seam is not accurate. Well, so if I go and look at this one and I put my hem gauge right on the edge of this one, it is pretty accurate. However, this one appears to be slightly wider than the one over here. Because remember, I told you I just hid the fabric underneath that little edge of the foot, and I get a scant 1/4 inch. This one is going to be a full 1/4 inch. So that is fine most of the time. And if you have trouble staying straight, this is an excellent foot to get because it has this guide on it. And the guide is relatively large. As you can see, it's pretty long. So let me hold it sideways so you can see it. It's pretty long, okay? But it is a full 1/4 inch. It's not a scant. And if you want to do a scant with it, I have to do a little bit more working to get it more scant. So this one is a full 1/4 inch. Now, this is my favorite foot, though, to put my binding on with. So I like to use this foot to put my binding on because this long guide here lays over the edge of the quilt and the binding off over the edge, and it works really good for that. And I like to have a full 1/4 inch seam on my binding so it fits nice and tight. Okay, so this is an excellent foot for that. If you're using this for regular piecing, if you're doing something, now I do a lot of piecing with a I do a lot of piecing with like big rectangles and squares, and I do a lot of modern quilts. So that is an excellent foot for that because you're not doing a lot of small little triangles and stuff. Okay. So that's something that you might need to consider with your 1/4 inch piecing foot, what type of thing you're doing. Okay. So like if I'm doing one with lots of triangles, I really kind of need a scant so that everything fits together nicely. This is the foot that I use for that. Okay. And then if I want to put my binding on, I like to put this one on with a little guide, and it lays over the edge of my binding, and it's a full 1/4 inch. Okay. Or if you're doing like a modern quilt with large pieces, like large triangles and rectangles and stuff like that, and not a lot of small detailed like little stars and half square triangles, this would also be an excellent foot. So I actually own all of these feet because I use them for different things. Okay. So is there any questions about these two? So these are the two original feet. Just so you know, so this is the Baby Lock foot. And again, they call this one a quilting or patchwork foot, 1/4 inch with guide. Brother calls it 1/4 inch piecing foot with guide. Okay, so it's the same foot. I have all of them here, so I just kind of grabbed all the boxes. These are all like $14.99. So all these two, and there's 4 different ones, and either one will work with either machine. All right, so these were the original ones. And they both have their merits. They truly do. It just depends on what you're making and what you're doing. The one thing I have a little trouble with this one is this guide is quite long. And sometimes I run into things with it. Like if I don't get a pin out, it's very long. It sticks out quite a ways, you can see on the end. And I'll catch things with it before I get it, like the pin pulled out. Okay, so this one's a little different. So I'm going to show you another one here in a minute that is a little shorter and it's a little bit more convenient. Okay, so both of these work quite well. All right, so are there any questions about those two 1/4 inch feet? So this one's going to be more full 1/4 inch. This one's a little bit more adjustable by where you lay your fabric because there's no guide there. Okay, so this one's a little bit more for you to choose where you lay your fabric. And these are very close, but you can see this one is just a smidge longer. I mean, as I'm looking at this, you probably can't see it quite as well as I can. I tried to make it real good, but this one, I can see the pink at the end of my seam hem gauge right here. I can just see the pink line here. So that to me is a full 1/4 inch. If I turn it over, this is the original one we had, I'm covered up the 1/4 inch. I'm covering up the line of stitching. And so that to me is a scant. Okay. So is that making sense to people? You can see that, and visually, I can see it. It's probably harder on the camera. I can see just ever so slightly a difference in the 1/4 inch seams. Okay, so this is the full one over here, and this is the scant one over here now. I just turned it over. Okay, so so there are times when I use either one. I have all of these feet. These are all my feet. Okay, so let's go on and let's talk about Baby Lock has some of their own feet that Brother does not have. And I'm so glad because I really like these feet. Now, if you look at these, here's one without a guide. Okay, and here's one with a guide. This one has the guide. You probably can't see it. It's black. So it's right here. And see how short it is. So see, that's one good thing. It's not in the way. Okay, I like this guide foot. When I use a guide foot, I like this one the best. Okay, this one does not have a guide on it. So I'm going to run my fabric along this tine right here. Okay. And then the other thing you'll notice, so these are kind of their counterparts in the first ones we looked at. Okay, so this is one without, but look at the difference in the size of the feet. This foot here and here, this is the guided one, the unguided one. So look how much bigger they are. So these feet really work well, I think, because of the size. They don't stop quite so easy. Like, and then they also, if you notice, it's funny. I call these the wheelie bar. It's not the correct term. You know, your J foot has that on the side too. A lot of people ask you what that black button's for. So what it's for when you put this on, oops, is when you're going, if you have to go over a hump of fabric, you push down on the back of it and you can push this little bar in and it holds it there. And then when it goes up over the hump, it pops back down. So it's sort of like I call it the wheelie bar. So it's kind of a silly name, but that's what I've always called it. So this has that, and you can see it's considerably larger than the brother foot. Okay. The original foot. So I like this foot because it does feed. Everything feeds through the machine much better. And if you look at the size of this other one, it does go over the feed dogs, but just, you can see how it just goes over the feed dogs. This one here is wider than my feed dog. So it has a little bit more grip when it's pulling the fabrics through. So let's try this one. Now this one again does not have a guide. So I use this one most of the time. And the other thing it has, and I don't know if you can see here as well, let me hold the other one up. It has more of an oblong hole here. So you have a very slight adjustment of your needle placement. So you can adjust your needle placement slightly to the left or the right here by doing, now my machine has left-right shift. So I can go up at very small increments and down very small increments and move my needle to the left or the right. So if you're having problems achieving the seam you want, that is one thing you can do with these feet, is just to have a slight adjustment. Most of the piecing feet just have this tiny hole, so you really need to leave the needle in the center. Okay, so let's try this one. Let's see what this one looks like. So again, I'm going to run my fabric right along this little tine in here. If I want it to be scant, I'm going to just tuck my fabric under it. If I want it to be full, you're going to be able to see the edge. So let's get a couple more pieces of fabric here. Okay. And again, I'm going to push this up so that my needle drops down in my fabric. And I'm going to sew forward. And I really, like I said, this foot really is nice because it's just a little bigger, a little wider. And I'm trying to achieve a nice scant 1/4 inch with this one. Let's look at this one, see how we do. Okay. And again, I'm just covered the stitching up here. Whoops, let's put it up a little bit higher. I just have covered the stitching. So to me, that's a scant. So the end of my little hem gauge is just covering the pink stitching. Okay. And I want to sew with this, and if I need it to be full, I would make sure that I can see. So like if I can put this back down, I would make sure that I could just see the edge of my fabric, and that's going to be a full seam. So like if I do this again, you get this lined up here at a full 1/4 inch, you'll be able to see it, because you'll be able to see both lines. And I'm trying to be very careful. And again, with this foot, you are going to have to be basically guiding it yourself. These machines sew very straight. Okay, but you can see, when I get this a little closer, let's pull it this way. Can you see that basically the line that I just stitched for a full 1/4 inch is just inside the one that I did for the scant? So there's two lines there. And it's basically one stitch, one width of the thread difference. But it will make a difference when you're making your quilt, because if every single square you do is a width of the thread difference, then it will be different sizes. Okay, so that is one thing then I can adjust between a scant and a full by making sure that I'm just tucking the edge of the fabric under for my scant, and I can see the edge of the fabric for the full 1/4 inch. Okay, so this one's a little bit more adjustable, just like this one is. All right, I sewed and sewed and sewed, pieced with this foot for years and years, and I've kind of switched to a couple different things, so we're going to talk about a couple more things yet. But I really like this foot because I can do the same thing I did with this one, but it's longer and wider, and it feeds through the machine so much better. Okay, so this is the baby lock one. This one they call, what do they call it? This one they call the 1/4-inch quilting foot. So they have all these different names. But this is what this foot is. Okay. And these are $15.99. And I have these, and by the way, yesterday I put all these feet up on the website. So if you can't come see us, order it on our website. I've got all of these different feet up there. Okay. So this is the Baby Lock 1/4-inch quilting foot that is without the guide. Okay. So you could see we could achieve a very good seam, either a scant or a full with that one. Okay. So let's try, we're going to turn this over. And let's look at the one that has the guide. This is the Baby Lock one, and they call this one also 1/4-inch quilting foot with guide. Okay, so then you can see the little black guide here. It's kind of a shine on the package, but little black guide right here. Okay, that's what this one is. This one, again, I have a guide. So I like this foot. It's the same foot as this one is, but they got the little guide screwed onto it. And I like it because the guide doesn't get in my way. So if you want a guided foot, this is an excellent one. And I have to say, even by just putting the fabric right up to it, it is quite accurate. This one's not really a full. This one's more of a scant with the guide, and I've just got my fabric right along my guide there. And when I've used these, and this is the one I like to use when I need a guided foot. And this one actually is definitely, it's just a scant. So this is a very nice one if you want a nice scant 1/4-inch with a guide. You see the little guide. And I like this guide because it doesn't get in the way. It's not going to get in the way of your pins and stuff like that. It's not going to wonk things. Okay. So this is my favorite guided foot. If you really want a guided foot, this is an excellent one. And it kind of gives you that scant 1/4-inch without trying. And it's very accurate. So if you use the same foot for everything, you're going to have a nice fitting quilt. Okay, so this is an excellent foot. I mean, like I said, I use them all. I generally don't use a guided foot, so I use this one, and I get the same results. But then I have a little more, autonomy with this one. I can go scant or full. This one really is just scant because you can't push it out past that guide, the fabric. So it's really a scant 1/4-inch. Okay, so I like both of these. So these two are both $15.99, just so you know. And they call those their 1/4-inch quilting foot. These are the Baby Lock ones, with guide or just without the guide. This is the one without the guide. Okay, so these are all up on the website. These will work on your Brother machines, even though it says Baby Lock. You can use these on the Brother machines too. Okay. Oh, Lynn likes her guided foot. Lynn, do you use this one? Do you use this one, the silver one? Is that the one you've used? This is the one that comes with a lot of the machines. So if you have a guided foot, you're very likely to have this one because this comes with a lot of the machines. And I like this foot. Depending on what you're sewing, this one works fine, but if you're doing stuff with lots of small pieces and you're going to have lots of seams, you're going to come up, things are not going to fit because it's a full 1/4-inch and it's hard. So this one is going to give you, that scant 1/4-inch. And then if you got a bunch of those little seams, then you're going to come out better with this foot if you like a guided foot. I personally sew pretty straight, so I like the unguided feet. So it's a very personal preference. I really like both of these feet. This is the one I use most of the time when I am sewing with a piecing foot. Oh, yes. So make sure, Lynn said that she's broken a lot of needles because she forgot to move her needle. Well, make sure you go into your settings then and do that. That guide, this one, you mean, Colleen? This one, yes, this guide here, I don't have too much trouble with this one because it's kind of tucked back here and it's more protected. Okay, I like this one, and you do have to be careful with these feet. Don't be pulling on these things because it will change, obviously, your guide then. This one does get a little bit in the way, yes. That's why I like to use it for binding, because it kind of lays over the edge of the binding and is good for that. Okay, so this one is not my favorite one, but I do use it for binding because I want a full 1/4 inch, and I like that this little thing lays over the edge of the binding, the raw edge of the binding. Okay, when I'm sewing it on, so I do use that one. Okay, all right. So here's the first 4 piecing / quilting feet, 1/4 inch quilting feet. Okay, so we talked about those. Now there's one more that they just came out with, and I got to find it here. Oh, here it is. And I don't own this one, so we're going to open this one out of the package. So they have, Baby Lock has a new one that came out, I think it might be 2 falls ago now. This one is a 1/4 inch piecing foot that's clear. Okay. So this is basically just like this foot, the original one, but it's clear plastic. Now, I have a little more problem with this one because I find it easier for me to focus on this metal edge because it's darker than this clear edge. But I know people that like this foot very much and use this. So this one also gives me that option. Again, little hole in the middle, make sure your needle's in the center. Okay, let's see what time it is. We're doing good here. My watch died this afternoon, so I have no watch. I'm looking at the computer. All right, so again, this one, just like this one, I am going to just tuck the edge of the fabric, and it's very accurate, but I have a little harder time focusing on the clear plastic. It's a little harder for me to keep it just where I want it. Now, some people really, really like this one because it's clear, and then you can see your fabric, and you can see the fabric through it. It is very nice. Okay, so there's my scant 1/4 inch because I just tucked it underneath the edge of the fabric, and I'm just right where the other one was. I'm just covering the stitching underneath the end of my hem gauge here. Okay, so I think it's very accurate to get your full 1/4 inch then, and we can do that with this on the same side so you can see it. Let's get the full 1/4 inch. We're going to put this in here. And I can see the fabric quite well. But I focus on this edge, and I have a tendency to miss a little bit with the plastic, the clear plastic. So now I can do my full 1/4 inch. And as you can see, you'll be able to see both lines, I think. Okay, I got a little off down here because but you can see there's 2 lines of thread, and it's basically one stitch, one width of thread difference. Okay, so depending on where I'm placing my fabric, I like the scant 1/4 inch, so I place it just under the edge. And you can do that quite well with this clear plastic foot because I can see the fabric quite well, and I can just see the edge of it under my foot. Okay. Patricia, yes, it will if you buy a different shank. The Zest has a different shank on it, the thing that I clipped the fabric or the feet on. So yes, you can use this, but you would have to also buy another shank. So yes, the answer is yes, but just you have to buy 2 pieces for that one. That one has a different shank on it that you have to have the other shank to run these feet. But yes, it will. What was the name of the scant 1/4 inch foot? Okay, so there's 2. You mean the one with the guide, Connie? The scant one with the guide? This one? Is that the one you're talking about? This is the Baby Lock one. And this one really truly is a scant with the guide. Okay, this one is called let me find the box. 1/4 inch quilting foot with guide. And it's BLSO-QGF is the number. F is in Frank. And these are up on the website, but you'll be able to see the picture of it because it has the guide on it. And I put these up on the website so you can order them. Okay. So they call these 1/4 inch quilting feet. That's what Baby Lock calls theirs. And Brother calls theirs piecing feet. All right, so it just depends. But Brother doesn't have these two, this one with the guide and this one without the guide. These are just Baby Lock feet. So Baby Lock has some of their own feet. Is this the one you like? This is the one yes, this is the one I use if I want a guide. I personally use the one without the guide most of the time. I like this one. The one without the guide, because I don't really need the guide. I can sew pretty straight. So I like this one without the guide, because then I can choose either a full 1/4 inch or a scant 1/4 inch. And this is the one I like. And it's longer and bigger. It just floats through the machine better. Okay. And I still use this one some. If this is the only one I have, I use this one too. I still like it. This is the original old one that I've always used. Okay. So then this is the newest one. This is that clear one. And let's see, that one's called Clear 1/4 inch Quilting Foot. That's what they call it. And this is the Baby Lock. This Baby Lock has this one. And this one is also $15.99. And this is also up on the website. So it is kind of cool. I haven't really used this one much. But it does, especially if you're doing a scant, you can really see, do that again. You can really see the edge of your fabric, because I've got it just under the edge of the foot then, and I can really see that I'm staying straight then. So I think that's cool. Now, I may have to buy that one. I don't have that. That's about the only foot I don't have. I have it like every foot. So I like feet. So I have lots of them. All right. So there's our 5 feet. Okay. So this is the 5 basically piecing 1/4 inch piecing feet that Brother Baby Lock have. And for the sewing machines, there's some other ones that we'll talk about later at a later date. I want to do some stuff with the digital dual feed foot also, and they have one for that as well. So we'll talk about that. But here's these feet. So this is one way of getting to a perfect 1/4 inch seam. Depending on what you're using, and what you're doing, you may need to choose a different foot for that. Or if you're mostly wanting to achieve a scant 1/4 inch and you like a guide, this is an excellent choice. This one here. Okay. So hopefully this is helping you. So I've got another way that I like to do a 1/4 inch. Now this is actually my favorite way. And we do this a lot on Sew Along with Jan. So you probably have heard me talk about this. So I got to find my other foot. It's down here somewhere. Okay. I'm going to put my J foot on, which is my standard foot. And if you look at my J foot, I learned this by accident because I was doing a quilt that the entire quilt was half square triangles. And so I was sewing over all of those, like triangular seams. Okay. And I was having a heck of a time with this foot because it just, nothing would, would sew along and then it would stop. And I'd get to the corners and I would veer off. I was just having a really hard time. And so I had been watching a bunch of Baby Lock videos, and they were talking about the piecing stitch on the machine. Well, I've always known that stitch was on there, but I didn't think about it for actual piecing. Okay. So my favorite way to create a 1/4 inch seam is still with my J foot and a different stitch. So if you look at this foot here, see this foot's pretty close to the length of my J foot, see? So that's why I like this one if I want to use a piecing foot. But see, my J foot's still just a little bit longer than this one. Okay, depending on the machine you have. Now I have most of the newer machines have these long J feet. The older J feet were about 3/8 or 1/2 inch shorter than these. Okay, so if you have an older machine like a Quattro or something like that, your foot may be a little shorter. But these are pretty close in length. This is about the same length as the older feet were. Okay, and that's why this one goes over the bumps so much better. But this is even longer. So I like it because it glides over the bumps, okay? Because it's just bigger. And it covers the feed dogs nicely. So it feeds really well. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one on here. So I've got my J foot. I'm going to show you 2 more ways of making a 1/4 inch seam. This is my favorite way. I'm going to go over here to if you've got a touch screen on your machine, it's going to have a Q tab, which is your quilting tab. And mine's the bottom here. And the stitch that I use is the Q02. And what it does is when I touch that, it slides my needle position over to the right, to the 5.5 position. So in other words, it's moving my needle instead of me moving the fabric onto a position on the foot. It's moving my needle to the 1/4 inch piecing position, okay? And then with this one also, I can also still control how, if it's a scant or if it's a full, okay? So it tells me to use my J foot, which is just my standard foot. And the other thing I like about this is that if I need to, then I can zigzag right away. I don't have to pull the foot off, see, because this is my zigzag foot. Okay, so let's try this one. So what I do is I've got it on Q02. And for those of you with the other sewing machines, it's going to be I don't know if you can see it on my screen here, but when you look at it on your machine, can you see that it's got a line that's kind of over towards the right, and then it's got the letter P next to it? So that's all of the machines have a piecing, nearly all the machines have a piecing stitch, other than like some of the little mechanicals. But that's going to be the letter P, and then the line's going to kind of be over towards the right. Okay, so that'll be the 1/4 inch piecing stitch. And there's also one with the needle in the center position. So we'll talk about that one in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my fabric just under, just like I did with this one, just like I did with this one, just like I did with this one, just under the edge of my foot. So I can't see it. And that's going to be a very nice scant 1/4 inch. And I like this because I have this whole foot then to watch. See if I'm staying straight. And my quilts turn out pretty dang close. I mean, I've been very pleased with, after I figured this out, that this works really well for me. So if I lay this on here, the edge of my, whoops, second here, there we go. The edge of my hem gauge is just covering, whoops, can't see it again. Just covering that stitching line. Okay, and that's my scant 1/4 inch. And so this works well for me. If I want a full 1/4 inch, we can do the same thing with this one. I'm going to make sure that I can just see the edge of the fabric. Drop my needle. And I can just see the edge of my fabric on the right side of my foot. And there's times when you need a full 1/4 inch. I mean, you know, there's times when I need the full 1/4 inch. Okay, so see, here's my 2 lines. Pull this back a little bit. So here's my 2 lines. Here's my scant, and here's my full. And I did that with the same foot. But what I usually do is I just tuck it under the edge of my foot. And that, I really like this because then I don't have to change the foot all the time. And I can zigzag. So like lots of times right now I need to zigzag immediately, and then I don't have to switch the foot off and on. Okay, so that's yet another way to get a really good 1/4 inch seam. Now there's one last way that I'm going to show you. Sometimes I use this, but it's harder on this machine than on my Luminaire. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this or not, but on the front of your needle plate, okay, there's going to be some markings. Okay, and one of them says 1/4 inch, one of them says 1 inch, there's a 5/8 inch here, but here's your 1/4 inch right here. Okay, and on the Luminaire, it's a little bit darker. You can see it because it's a metal. The front of the needle plate's metal instead of plastic. But this works with the center needle position. So if I'm on my Q tab, like that I'm on the quilting tab, the center needle position is Q01. So see, now it's moved my needle back to the center position. Here's Q02. You see that needle over here, okay? If I go back to Q01, if I want a 1/4 inch seam, I can run my fabric right along that 1/4 inch mark. It's right there. I know you can't see it very well. It's very hard on this, so I meant to get my other, bring another machine back that had a metal needle plate. It's a little harder. But this one, ooh, you know what? This one doesn't do the center needle position. This one is the left needle position. My Luminaire is a center needle position. This one must be the left because I haven't sewn one of these on here. So let me check. Let me go back to my standard tab and go to the left. Yes, so this needle plate, depending on the machine, then it's going to make a difference. This needle plate is set up for those markings in the front to be on the left needle position. So see, for me to sew that with that needle over there, I don't know that I can sew straight. Let's see if I can do it. On my Luminaire, it is the center needle position. That works with the needle plate markings. So they've changed the needle plate markings. But see, the problem is, see now, you know, the mark's way down here and my fabric's way up here. So I got completely off. Look how I did this. So it's out here and then it goes like this. Whoops. Okay. So, and that's also a full 1/4 inch. Okay. So I think the needle plate, let me go look at the needle plate on the other machine real quick. But this one is set up for this marking on the front to be at the needle on the left. The Luminaire, I'm sure it's in the center. So let me go look at my needle plate quickly. I'll go grab the needle plate off that machine out there. And I'm sure that's what it is. But that one is set up so that the 1/4 inch is moved over this way a little bit. And then I can leave the needle in the center. So let me go grab it real quick and then we can look at it. Yep, I'm used to sewing on this machine when I've done this, and I do this occasionally. So if you look at this needle plate, this is the one off my Luminaire. You can see here's the mark for the 1/4 inch right here. This is the center needle position that's on the. They also give it to you on the little bobbin door. Okay, so then it runs all the way up, but that is the center needle position. So I put for this machine, I put it in the center. And I'd run my fabric right along here, but they also give you a line up on your needle plate or on your bobbin door. Okay. So that's why I was surprised when I looked down. I'm like, hey, that's not a 1/4 inch seam. So these machines that have the plastic, the plastic front on and you'll have to measure it. That's how I figured these all out. I just took my hem gauge and measured everything. If you got this plastic part, you know, that comes off in your front of your needle plate, it's going to be the left needle position. Okay, that will give you a 1/4 inch with the mark that's on here. These newer ones, the newer machines now have a one piece needle plate. This one is going to be the center needle position. So you can see right here, that's the center needle position. There's a 1/4 inch seam. So that's on the needle plate too. I don't use this very often because I run out of, you know, line and then I get crooked like I did on that one. It was a very good sample, wasn't it? See how crooked I was? It's like all of a sudden I ran out of needle plate and it's like, whoops. Okay, so see how off I was? So that would not be my favorite option for the 1/4 inch seam. Okay, so my favorite option is, I mean, and actually, like I said, I use all of these. I still like my J-foot with the Q02. Second here, it's mad because I took the needle plate off. But I like my Q02 piecing stitch with my J-foot. That's one of my favorites. I also use most of the time the 2 feet that do not have a guide. This one most of the time, this is the larger one. Okay. And then if I want a guide, I use this foot with the guide. And I think this is very accurate. And accuracy is important, especially when you're doing stitching with a very small or doing a lot of small pieces, like a lot of triangles and that kind of thing. If you're doing an intricate quilt, if you're doing something that has those larger pieces and it's not going to, as long as you're using the same foot all the time, you won't have any problem. But I do a lot of stuff generally that has a lot of little pieces. And if you start doing a whole bunch of little pieces and they're all just a little bit off, then you're a lot off at the end. So that's why I wanted to show you this, because this is something that's important. We all need to have a good, so that's why I called it In Search of the the perfect 1/4 inch seam, because it really is kind of up to what you're doing and what works for you. Okay. So what do you think? So all these are up on the website. So if anybody wants to go to shieldsewingcenter.com and buy some feet, there's a whole bunch of them up there. You can come to the store. They're in the store too. If I don't have the one you want, let me know and I'll get it ordered for you. And we're going to talk about some feet and stuff on these Wednesday afternoon little things, because Shields, to me, these are things that are important for you to know. We're going to talk a little bit about, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next week. Tim will be back next week, so he may have something that he wants to do. So I'll probably let you know early next week what we're going to do. But I like to do stuff like this because these are important. We may just go through some of the feet that come with the machine too, because a lot of people don't realize what you use some of those other feet for. Okay, and I know for sure a lot of you have the digital dual feed, the big walking foot, and that's something that we'll go through. We'll go talk about that and how to set it, and also some of the feet and stuff that come with that. So, okay. So I hope that this helped you. This is fun for me to do this kind of stuff, because then we get to talk a little bit more in depth about the machine itself. And you can go ahead and turn my camera back up here so you can see me, and we can say goodbye for the afternoon. Switch my microphone, so I'm heading towards the microphone instead of away from it. So if you have any questions, message me through Facebook, or call me at the store. And if you want to go buy feet, they're up on the website now. So I'm going to start putting feet as we talk about them. I'm going to put them on the website. So I got these 5 up there at least. So we're going to do a little bit at a time. But this is something that I think everybody needs to know about their machines. It's just general knowledge. Yeah, the accessories are fun, Colleen, because it's something that I don't always get to do. This is the kind of stuff I did in the classes in the store. So I'm glad to be able to do some of these on Wednesday afternoons, because I think it's very interesting. And then you know what that thing is. Now you can go and say, oh, well, I know what this does now. So we will talk about some of that stuff. All right. So everybody have a good week. We'll be back next week. I'm not sure what we're going to do, so I'll let you know probably in a few days. I'll ask Tim if he had something in mind. Otherwise, I'll pick something and we'll do something else. And we'll see you next Wednesday afternoon for Shields Live at 2:00. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.